We talked earlier before we started the shoot a little bit about how you're getting some really good learnings in terms of seeding an account, perhaps with just a few seats of a cloud-based solution, and then the types of things that you do to sort of expand that footprint over time. Now, there's a couple pivots there. One is how you handle that conversation in a low-cost way to get the expansion. The other one is what role services might play or might not play, because as we know in the cloud, it's not necessarily a critical thing that the customer always buys services with every additional seat that they get. So how are you thinking about seeding and expanding and services? How are you tying those all together?
Yeah. So slightly different strategy in each one of those categories, but in general, we're looking at it from the standpoint of how do we continue to get these organizations to move forward with their implementation, right? Yeah. So that can look very differently depending on what that customer is actually wanting to do. So it may not be that every time they're always consuming, like you said, services to do certain things. So we're actually just looking at how do we continue to get them to be successful with the platform, because we know that that can go a variety of ways, right? So a sales automation project can turn into a service project, ultimately, or move into an XRM solution, or quite frankly, they start to like the idea of consuming, anything in the cloud, right? So then Office 360 and other types of solutions start becoming more and more important to them. Now, we're not necessarily, an Office 365 partner, but we see it as organizations are using CRM in a lot of ways to test their move to the cloud as an organization, right? They're running a bunch of stuff on-premise. They try this in the cloud. They realize that actually it has the advantages that they've been reading about or thinking about. And so we're seeing that we're looking for those opportunities to kind of keep advancing their abilities to do that. We have a couple of really fantastic partners that we work with that are doing some very interesting things in the cloud with web intelligence, with mobility, with just a lot of the social CRM things that are going on right now. So we see those as being very complementary to the expansion and footprint there. So not always services, to your point, and that's a great point from our standpoint. And we try as a company, as much as we're a services company, we try not to get caught up in everything has to be about services. It's just about how do we kind of expand their footprint is our big thing.
Yeah, the partner-to-partner play is a very interesting one. Have you thought about or experimenting at all with the different sort of flavors of the services offerings you could have? For example, maybe not something traditional related to integration or customization of their cloud solution, but more around business process related to that vertical or that industry that the customer is in.
Yeah, so we're starting to see more vertical plays, and this is one of the wonderful things about all of us moving more to the cloud is that people are getting really innovative, and it's fun to watch even the other partners as they get smart on a particular vertical, and they realize it's actually a lot easier to market and to sell and to deliver this service in this way. So we're seeing some good things in the vertical area. We're also seeing a big push, and this is one of our big things right now, is how do we get really down to the granular user adoption, things that are just happening and plaguing still these implementations, ongoing. My constant sort of analogy to customers is you never get on an analyst call with an organization, a Fortune 500 company, and the CFO says to the analyst on the street, by the way, we don't have our results because our accountants decided they didn't want to use the ERP system this last quarter, so we never calculated anything, right? Whereas the industry in general is plagued with Salesforce automation or CRM projects where people just aren't using it as much as they should. So our big thing is how do we continue to push adoption at the very tactical level as well as at the strategic level? So that's actually one of our more packaged offerings that we're looking to push organizations on.
Okay. I was thinking maybe I would take it in the direction now of asking you a little bit to open up the hood in terms of how maybe you think about staffing your organization or your expansion, because that's in many ways some of the toughest decisions our partners need to make on a day-to-day basis. How do you think in terms of adding an additional services head, adding a marketing head, or adding a sales head, given these tiered approaches that you're taking and the different aspects of seeding versus growing? Has it changed the way you think about building your services practice?
It has. So what's interesting is, and again, I always preface these kind of answers with, this is just the reality that we've created for ourselves, right? Good or bad. But one of the things that is more and more interesting, right? And as I always think about how these platforms are getting better and better and easier to use, is that our big thing is our magic isn't in how do we go and customize CRM at the end, right? Because dragging and dropping fields is for the everyday person now, right? So that's something that we want to to push more and more onto our customers to actually do. In fact, for us, it doesn't make sense that we're over and over again adding fields onto forms and doing things like that. We want them to be able to do that kind of stuff. So the way we then architect our, our delivery teams and how we staff and how we expand is really around how do we continue to add people that can add value to helping them think through and build the right blueprint or the right design for actually implementing their CRM system, not who are all the people that are going to do all the development and the configuration around it. Now, customers still need that kind of service, and it's appropriate for us to be doing it up front. But we're thinking differently about the pyramid, I guess, is what we're doing, or or that's the reality that we've put ourselves into, and we're continuing to expand in that way.
I think that is definitely a great blueprint for how to think about it. Looking forward, maybe one final question would be, how do you think with your team, with the leadership team of your organization, and frankly with everybody in your organization, about setting aspirational goals for winning and taking share in the cloud? Certainly we know it's not easy. We have stiff competition out there, and we're not the only player at the game. So how do you set aspirational goals for your team where you say, maybe 25 customer adds a year in the cloud-based solution would have seemed a year ago to be enough, but really we've got to be thinking in terms of hundreds, if not thousands, of customers. How do you get the team fired up about that?
We're that's probably one of our biggest strengths in the company is the level of creativity and thinking big. So our big thing all the time is how do we look at what everybody else is doing and try to keep breaking that paradigm. So one of the paradigms we're trying to break right now is one of the the most customer adds for a given year. We're looking at it and saying, what, that'll be an interesting milestone to hit, and everybody will be happy about it for all of 5 minutes. But we're already thinking about how do we do 10x that, the year after, or 5x that the year after, and really how do we expand in a big way. So our organization in general, especially our leadership, is very much around how does everything work 5 times faster, and how does everything be 10 times bigger, right? So we constantly look at it that way, and quite frankly, it does get everyone energized, right? It gets everyone a little nervous, and it gets everyone energized at the same time because they're like, how could we possibly do that? But what it does do is it constantly makes us, take off that hat of, things have to happen in this certain way, or we have to do things the way that they've always been done. It really does make us change and constantly think about how to do this differently.
Well, I think the way you answer that is what I know you best for. It's this passion to go big. I know you're really going to hit it big with the cloud and with your services practice in a sustainable way over the long term. I want to thank you, David, in 0 to 10 for giving our audience just an amazing set of blueprints and frameworks and ideas for how to build a profitable and sustainable services practice that is cloud-oriented. This is David Smith, again, with the U.S. subsidiary, GM of Dynamics Partner. I want to thank you for joining us in this series of From the Cloud, and looking forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.